Hey everyone, it's your girl Shar. Thank you for tuning in to my channel today. Make sure you like and subscribe for more. So today I'm going to be talking about a story that's on Netflix. It's called Queen Charlotte, Bridgeton story. So if you haven't seen Bridgeton season one and season two, I highly recommend that you see it so that way you understand the spinoff of this show. A lot of the stories, a lot of the episodes, pretty much all the episodes in this series, it goes back and forth between the present and the future contents, and you're not going to understand the characters or the contents of it without seeing Bridgerton 1 and 2. It all, like, comes into full circle. It's like a full circle moment, which I really appreciate it, and it gives you insight on the queen. No one really knows why the queen is the way she is, and this story just gives you more in depth into who the queen is, why she's that way, and it gives you also some insight of her husband, King George, as well, and other characters, other main characters you do see on Bridgerton. It gives their backgrounds too. It doesn't dive too much deep into it, but it does cover some of it. So this podcast series. It's going to be about episode one. So I'm going to do different episodes each week or each day, or yeah, I'll just be posting some. So make sure you're on the lookout for it. This is a spoiler alert. So if you haven't seen it, I advise you to tune out and then tune back in once you've seen it. A couple of things I want to say about the series is they did a really good job with casting. The actors do resemble the actors in the future, so they did a really good job with casting. I feel like the actors and actresses they did a really good job with acting in their roles, and it was really believable. It was a lot of emotion in those roles, and I went through an emotional roller coaster watching this series. I was crying on my pillow in some scenes, and some scenes I was really angry at characters, so they did a really good job. My emotions was up and down. Overall, really good. I think it's a really good series to watch as well. With that being said, I love the music. The music is amazing. It's classical music in the Victoria era, but it's a lot of modern, like, songs that we're familiar with or that's pretty popular in pop culture, and it dives into different, like, genres of different songs that we all know and love, and I like that how they use those songs and they made it to, like, a classical version of it, and I don't know who is in charge of the music, but they picked the right songs for the right scenes, and I love it. I think this is, like, my favorite out of the whole Bridgerton, shows. I think the spinoff is, like, my favorite. I may be a little bit biased, but yeah, the spinoff is definitely my favorite. Alright, so I'm gonna dive into episode 1. So episode 1 starts off as the queen is in Germany. So she resides in Germany, and she noticed that she's walking down this hallway, and she noticed that her brother is with some London king officials. I deeply apologize if I'm saying the terminology is wrong. So she just witnessed this agreement or noticed that it's an agreement that's being signed. And next thing you know, she's getting upset. She's tossing this statue on the ground. She storms down the hallway, and the brother is like, in on it, just listening, whatever, just follow her. And then the next thing you know that they're going to London. They're in this carriage going to London to get married to the king. She's getting married to the king. So she's not a queen just yet, but she's going to be a queen. No one knows what this I don't really understand what the contract is saying in detail, but I just know based off the conversation that happens in a carriage, it's pretty much a marriage. And when you dive a little bit more into the episode, you get nips and pieces of what's going on, as far as whose idea was it, like what are they trying to do? And you just notice little little comments here and there throughout the episode. And the queen has doubts, and she would just have doubts. She wants to go back, and the brother said, I already signed the contract, and you're going to make a change. You're like, you're the first of your kind to do this. So when he said that, I'm assuming this is going to be like the first, like, integration type of marriage. that ever happens in London. So it's going to make a lot of history. It's going to bring a lot of unity within the kingdom. And and she was like a young girl back then. I did find out her age later down the road. She's 17 years old, but it didn't say the age this episode, but I found out like later down the road. So she's young. This is a big decision. Like you're young and you're about to rule London. You're about to rule a whole kingdom, which is beyond me. I was graduating high school at 17. All right. So it goes back into the present. So that was the past. It starts off in the past and then it goes back into the present. The queen is asleep. All of a sudden, it's like a knock on the door. The queen answers the door, and it's this guy. I don't know. I didn't even get a chance to relook at that character, but it was a guy who he said that um he was just there and like really you could see his face something has happened. He was like very distraught. And the queen, the first thing she said is the king's dead. Is the king dead? And he said, no, the king is very much alive. Long live the king. And but somebody did die, and we find out that it was the king and queen's son's wife and granddaughter. So pretty much the wife, the princess, she died during childbirth. She was giving birth to her child. The child died and she died along with her. The baby died along with her. So the appropriate heir has died. And I'm not sure how this got back to Lady Whistledown. So Lady Whistledown, if you haven't seen season 1 and season 2, you're not gonna know who I'm talking about. So pretty much it's like a newspaper that went out by Lady Whistledown, just explaining what happened about like the the heir is no longer here. It's a crisis in the palace, and how the queen has 13 living children, but is no heir to the throne, at least not a legitimate one. And it's still the funeral. This scene goes by so fast. It went from a death to a funeral or the mourning stage of one. And it seemed like it was still the funeral, but the queen just walks down this hallway and just looks up and stares at a picture. We don't know what the picture is at this time, but I know she just lifted up her face was just looking at the wall. So we know it's some type of picture, but we don't know what that picture is. And then in that moment, it flashes back to the past. And it shows a scene where the queen and her brother is giving her like a little talk, like make sure you're on your best behavior, while we like, go into the palace and everything. So we get introduced to Princess Augusta, which is King George's mother. Whew, I did not like this lady, y'all. I did not like this lady. She just had she did good. The actress is good, but I did not like the character in the beginning. So pretty much she was just examining Queen Charlotte. She was just examining her teeth. She told her to show her teeth. She was just looking her up and down, checking her body. And the next thing you know, she said, "Oh, you have hips to make children. You'll make wonderful babies, and that's your job is to make babies." And then, as they, have a conversation, she talks about the gown, what she's going to be wearing for the wedding. And Queen Charlotte is like, I already have a gown. I brought a gown with me that was made in Paris. Like, what you mean? And the queen said, no, you're going to wear a traditional gown, a traditional English gown that that they already have for her. And pay attention. So pay attention to small conversations that's being had because there is a full circle moment with these conversations. So definitely pay attention. And and then we also get introduced to Brinsley, which is kind of like a servant to the queen, just a protector of the queen. So Brinsley's job is to like follow the queen, be with the queen at all times, and protect her with his life. So just pay attention to each character of this series. And the queen is just trying to get used to the customs of London, how they do things there with royalty. And Brinsley is just following her. She's getting confused, and then she just asking questions about the king, just very curious about what the king is like and everything. And no one really gets to the point. no one really talks about any negative about the king. So we don't really know who the king is, who king we know is King George, but we don't know what he looks like, what's his personality like. So we don't know anything about him. We don't have no tea about him at all. So we go back to the scene again. It's still in the past, but the scene goes back to the Princess Augusta, and she's talking to the royal council. And she gets like she just made her comment how she's upset how she didn't know she was brown. She didn't know she was that brown. And everyone was showing concerns because of the color of her skin. And then I'm not sure what changes. This is where I was confused. I wasn't sure if the king talked to Princess Augusta or Princess Augusta realized she was like not in control in the moment. So she kind of like flipped her the way she does things because everything she said after that didn't really the correlations didn't add up because one thing you're upset and then the next moment in the same scene you want to proceed with the idea of the wedding and you want to expand the guest list and add her court to the wedding, and then she mentions that it's like the king's idea. So I don't know if that's really the king's idea because we didn't see that conversation, or if it was her idea. So in the next scene, oh my gosh, I almost fell out in this scene. It was the scene of a young version of Lady Danbury. So Lady Danbury and her husband were doing it. We're gonna say it how it is. They was doing it, and you can see her face. She's not satisfied. It's like a chore to her. She's not satisfied. She's not enjoying it at all. And then you notice her husband is significantly much older than her, so he is really, really old. And then I don't like I said, I'm not sure if Coral it's a lady named Coral. We get introduced to Coral. We're not sure if she's like I want to say she's like a servant to Lady Danbury, and she usually gives her warnings when things like this happens with her husband and she gets her bath ready, but in this particular case she forgot to warn her. She didn't warn her. It was just very spontaneous how it happened. And Lady Danbury was very upset about it while she was in the bath talking to her, and then Cora just proceeds to tell her, like, hey, like, there is a surprise that came today from the palace, and that Lady Danbury, Lord and Lady Danbury, have been invited to a royal wedding. And also, they want Lady Danbury to be a part of the Queen's court. And she just in disbelief, like, I need to see this invitation. She's just looking at her like in disbelief. It's crazy. So the next scene, the queen continues to ask out of curiosity about the king to the staff there, and no one is answering. Everyone and you could tell in their faces they have something to say, like they have something to say but don't want to say it. So it just got me wondering, like, what is wrong with the king? Is something going on that no one like knows about? Like what's going on? Just got me curious as well. And they sent out invitations to the Queen's Court, and people just people entering into the wedding. It was only 6 hours, so they did not miss a beat. They all came in. Princess Augusta acknowledged Lord and Lady Danbury and told them that they entitled for their titles and that they want to unite as a society. Again, I'm not sure if this is what she truly thinks or if this is something the king wants. And in the next scene, like this still is in the past though. Just keep in mind this is still in the past. So Brinsley tells Reynolds, which is Reynolds is the equivalent to Brinsley, but Reynolds served under the king. And he tells him like the queen is missing. And then also Lady Dunbury, we go back to Lady Dunbury and she looks up into the I don't know how to in the balcony area. It was like a balcony inside where they was at. And she looks up and she sees the queen just, walking off. And I don't even think she noticed the queen was, a different like, I didn't know she noticed the queen wasn't as she expected. So, she's just looking at her and she's walking off. The queen tends to try to escape, y'all. She has this big old dress, trying to climb up this wall, and I'm not sure why she thought she can climb up that wall with that big old dress. She's not gonna go anywhere. Not with all that stuff on. And then it's this guy that approached her, asked her what she was doing, asked her all these questions. She tried to shoo him away. Next thing you know, we found out the guy that was asking her all these questions was actually the king. And she didn't know he was the king until he said he was King George. So she was just very apologetic at the time. But at the same time, she would just like, I don't really know you at all. Like, I'm marrying you and I don't really know anything about you. And he doesn't know anything about her as well. And he just gave her an opportunity, like, you can ask me anything. And he just shared parts of himself, like who he is as a person. And her brother comes out, the queen brother comes out and found both of them talking to each other. And the king and the queen brother are just talking to the king, like, hey, like, she's excited. And the king knows she ain't excited. So he said it's her decision. I'm gonna leave it up to her. Like, if you want to marry me, you could walk down the aisle. It'll be your decision alone. And I don't think, according to those times, it wasn't no rights like that going on. So we get back to the wedding. Inside the wedding, the king is there. He's looking at the door. I think he's just anticipating that she walks through that door. And she does walk through the door. And they're staring at each other. And let me tell y'all something. When she walked into that wedding, walked down that aisle, she did not had on that traditional English dress. She had the dress that she had made on, and her hair was pinned up originally with the king dress. She had natural hair and it was pinned up. But in this scene, she didn't have her hair pinned up. She want her whole natural hair was out. It was like a nice, pretty fro with a crown on top, and the dress was so pretty. Like, she looked really gorgeous, and you could tell the princess. She was just really upset about it. Like, she was really salty. She was side eyeing her, and it was a couple of people that was whispering, but they was very subtle. But they was whispering and had something I believe they had something to say about it, but no one really said anything. And then that you could tell the chemistry between the two characters, it was so captivating. Like, you can tell they were just really like feeling it, like really feeling each other in that moment. And then we get to the reception. So that happened right after the wedding, and they share a dance together. And there's like a separation. You could tell the separation of the society on both sides of the dance floor. It was a couple people dancing, but you could tell it was still like stairs. People was just trying to get adjusted. Let me remind you, back in these times and that time frame, there was no integration. Like, it was no unity with society then. So this is like the first, step to moving forward to the future with this. So people are still like kind of hesitant at the time. And then everyone's leaving the wedding. The brother just walks up to the queen, just calls her your majesty, and she looks at him like, you my brother. Like, she didn't say this though, but she would just look at him like, why you calling me this? Like, I'm your sister. And he just wishes her well, wishes her children, and then leaves. And then we see Lord and Lady Danbury come out, and then Lady Danbury saying, like, just tell her congratulations and that she's a part of her court, part of her lady's court, whatever. Um, and then she tells her to be careful. Like, it was really weird. Like, the queen was just like, why would she tell me that? Like, just very curious as to why. And then the king just looks at, the queen, Charlotte. King George looks at Queen Charlotte and tells her, like, "I got a surprise for you." And she was just like, really excited. But I caught that Halo Beyonce classical music version. It was really nice. Nice touch. I really like it. But George shows the house that they're supposed to live in together as a future, but he tells her it's her house. And the queen is confused because she said, "No, this is our house." He said eventually, but he has his own estate that he's going to stay in. And she just like really confused because it's the wedding night, like, why we're not together. And she gets upset, like, "Hey, we supposed to be doing what married people do." And she would just ask him questions, and he would just get having an attitude and making a scene in front of all the staff there. And then the queen was questioning why he was leaving. The king was not answering the questions directly. He proceeded to say it was best for him to leave, and he leaves her in confusion. The queen, she just gets mad, and she just He left, and the queen just there. She's mad at Brimsley. Brimsley trying to like, be with her and stuff. And then it flashes back from that past scene. Now it flashes back to the present. That's why you have to watch it. It flashes back to the present, and the queen enters the room full of her children. It was 13 children. I didn't know she had 13 children, though. But I think she originally had 15 babies and two of them died. 15 children and two of them died. But, she walks in the room, the children is all adults, they're not children anymore, but they're her children, but they're adults, and they're, like, bickering and complaining, and she checks them like, "I don't have an heir anymore, and I need a legitimate heir. Y'all having all these legitimate babies," and she's not having it. And then she tells them to find husbands and respectable wives. And they talks about the next heir to continue their family father's line of their legacy. And then it flashes back into the past one more time. And the Queen Charlotte is in the room, lights are dim, she's by herself, she's, holding her legs together, and she's very sad, and she just tells herself like, "I should have just went over this wall, like what I was doing. I should have just went over this wall. Like if I'm going to be alone, like might as well just leave." And the episode ends after that. So I thought the first episode it was a lot going on. Even the little scenes, it was very subtle, but it did bring messages, like, from, like, the dress. Like, "I'm not listening to you." She had a mind of her own, and at that time, like, if you think about those time frames, it was a lot of restrictions on women, and there was no integration, it was a lot of restrictions on women, man was in charge of everything, and she kinda, like, was breaking those barriers. Little does she know, she was breaking those little things. And I don't know, I thought it was really, really good, and I really hope you enjoy the episode, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for tuning in again. Bye. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and share for more. Have a good day now. Bye.